What's up, everyone? Beast Mode back here with another video, and today I have a great match on deck here between two high-profile Edison players. We have IMNERD, who is Fraser Smith. He is the winner of YCS Atlanta 2010, I believe. I believe he won with Gravekeepers. High-profile player, has topped multiple YCS, SJC, Nationals, you name it, he's done it. Those of you who don't know, he actually has a YouTube channel. I believe it's IMNERD Podcast. I will try to figure out if I can link it in the description. If you haven't already, please subscribe to his channel. He has great Edison content, high profile player. He knows what he's talking about, so I definitely watch most of his videos that he releases. On the bottom here, Jerry Bean Man, we have DD Lub, also known as 10 Foot on the Discord server. He is RBET 5 champion. He actually beat me in the finals. Great value player. Both of these players are just great Edison players in general. They understand the game well. So this match took place while I was streaming the BCS tournament last Friday. There was some players who dropped from the tournament, so Fraser ended up having a couple buys, which was unfortunate because I know he really wanted to play. So I always want to keep high-level competitive Yu-Gi-Oh on stream, so I asked if these two would play, and this was just for bragging rights, more or less, not playing for anything, wasn't a tournament on the line. But I'll tell you, if you watch this match live, it was about an hour long. Both of these guys were playing like they were in the YCS finals, so it was a great match. I'm not gonna really, maybe point out a couple plays here or there. These players both know how to play their decks. I'm not gonna critique every move because I'm not even a frog player and a value player at all. So we have Fraser with frogs. I think it's hero frogs, and we have 10 Foot on value. So let's jump into the match. All right, we will show both hands because, I'm not going to, there we go. I think it's great for the entertainment purposes so everybody can see how these players were actually thinking. And it looks like DD Love got to go first here. So this is a pretty good value hand, I would say, right? Definitely search Greffer right off the bat here. And you can either choose to special summon the Greffer, send the value, and then get another discard. So let's see what he does. Oh, so interesting there. That is something very, very interesting. He actually rotas and just passes. I don't know the thought process behind it, but again, he knows how to play the deck, so maybe he's just waiting for his opponent to commit something here. But that's very interesting. A lot of players would just rota and slam the Greffer, so I'm interested to see why he made that move. Maybe he just wanted to really see what Fraser does next. So typical frog opening, right? Obviously swap frog into Treeborn. Threatening roars make this deck so resilient, so hard to OTK them. Hand is pretty good. Once you get Treeborn in the graveyard, this hand is just deadly. So he ended up drawing Dust Tornado, which is awful. Actually, he was making comments about it. It's not very good against the frog deck unless you have if he had drawn that first turn, maybe would be able to snipe the threatening roar. But at this point, it's really not any good. So he does the Greffer play now, which is interesting. So he actually special summons the Greffer, sends a value from hand, and then one from the deck. So they both obviously know what each other are playing at this point. So this looks like a very aggressive play. I think this is one of the things you have to do if you're playing against a frog deck, especially value, because I do feel that frogs is favored in this matchup. This is one of the big boss monsters of the value deck, and as you can see, it doesn't really do much against Marnox at all, right? 2300 is a lot smaller than 2400, so but the thing that the value deck has going for it is the fact that it's very, very explosive. Sure, it's underwhelming just bringing out one armed wing here or there, but if you can set up an OTK shot very easily with this deck, especially because Dark Arm is always live, because of the fact that pretty much all of the dark monsters in the graveyard can be removed, so you can draw a Dark Arm pretty much any time during the game and just be able to slam it. So that's one of the key points of this deck, that the deck is just extremely explosive. So Stardust, surprised he makes Stardust here because there's not a whole lot that in terms of defense that this deck plays, but he might be trying to set up for an OTK play, so in case it is Mirror Force, that would make sense. So what do we have for damage here? We have 5,067. So this is 5,067. So this is exactly game here if this all goes through. So this would be a turn 2 OTK if this is not Threatening Roar. Unfortunately it is, and now he sets Dust. So at this point right here, if Fraser does not have a follow-up play, Sometimes frogs can brick a little bit. He can actually OTK next turn. Even if they set a threatening roar, he's got the dust tornado. So this is really the strategy. If you're playing value and trying to beat frogs, you got to be very explosive. So he turns into another. So now he's at 7,500 on the board. One armed wing is real. So this makes sense here, right? Because if you drop Caius or Ryza, still not big enough to get over any of these. This is the only threat that's big enough. Out the Stardust. He is special summoning a Swap Frog here. So I wonder why. I think he actually special summons this Swap Frog here just for an extra layer of defense. He's got double swap in hand at this point, and he's already got one Treeborn in the graveyard. So I think this is more or less insurance. Yep, that's what that looks like. So again, DD Lub here, he draws instantly going into a synchro play here. He is just trying to put damage on the board. So Frazier looks like he's in trouble here, obviously. This board is very difficult for Frogs to beat, except the fact that he just drew a Miracle Fusion. So I think I've discussed this in one of my videos before. In terms of consistency, I think that this Hero Frog deck is probably the least consistent, and I'm not saying the deck is completely unplayable. That's not what I'm saying. In terms of the Frog decks, I do think that this one's probably the one that's more likely to brick, rather than the Diva Frog or the Hero, sorry, not the Hero Frog, the Diva Frog or the Junk Frog deck. So, but the other two decks cannot compare to the ceiling of this Frog deck here because of the fact that it can play Miracle Fusion and it can really pump out damage. So this card here is obviously just broken against this board. So that's the one card that can out this whole board here. If he draws a Monarch, he can't win, right? There's nothing that he can really do here. So Caius, he does not have a hero, so the hero's sitting right here. He needs to get that to the graveyard. This all makes sense. And now he slams Miracle Fusion. So I'm curious as to why he puts this into defense. I'm not sure. If he puts it in attack, either way, I don't think DD Lub is going to actually attack into this Absolute Zero. I'm not sure the thought behind it. There's probably a reason. It's just not coming to me right now, but I don't think this is a big deal either way. Okay, right. So in this instance here, Frazier could actually make a decision. If he does not decide to bring back the, he could actually hold off on bringing back the Treeborn Frog and just switch the Absolute Zero to attack and try to ram here. And then just crash and kill the board. The problem is when Treeborn comes back, now Absolute Zero is actually 3,000. Unless he tributes here for a Monarch. Let's see, so he does. So if I'm Frazier here, I'm probably targeting a back row just to see. Okay, so he actually targets the monster that he could potentially ram into. So he probably just values having 0 on the field. That's what it seems like here. Problem is if he has a Mirror Force in this instance or a D Prison, that 0 is not going to get any value. And now he is actually doing the loop here. Swap Frog is just a broken card. Now he has Ryza just on deck for next turn. And as you can see, 10-foot has just drawn dead. There's nothing to do here. Even Silverwind's not that great. So he decides to, actually he runs it over here because Absolute Zero goes up to 3,000. So he doesn't need to even crash. That's smart. Heads up play there. In phase 2. So he could potentially play into Torrential here by summoning this Ryza, but I think that he feels pretty confident in his position. And obviously that's a dead draw now. So Frazier's gonna win this game. He's got this locked down. Playing very slow. No need to bring this hero out. He can just attack with Absolute Zero here. And DD Lub is forced to blind Allure here. And as you can see, he drew a Mirror Force and a Royal Oppression. So he is going to lose game 1. So we're in the side deck. So to recap game 1 here, it seems like Frogs were doing what Frogs typically do, especially the hero build with that Miracle Fusion was just unbelievable. That could out the whole board there. 10-foot going into game 2, I think it has an advantage game 2 because of deck devastation virus, which destroys frogs. Number 1. Number 2, he can side deck out a bunch of the dust tornadoes because I think he main decks at least 2 of them, MST and heavy. So I do think that it kind of shifts towards value a bit game 2 and 3. So let's see what happens here. Typically, frogs are going to win game 1. Typically. Unless they just brick. So he sets value, and obviously he brought in Kaiku, and I'm not sure if he main decks Compulse or not, but he definitely brought in the Kaiku here. So not the greatest of openings. Obviously, a swap frog, if it gets slammed down on Fraser's side, can just really run over the value, and that could be problematic. But let's see what happens here. So he doesn't attack, and he sets dust. He might fear that that's a hamster or maybe a Raikou. Doesn't want to lose a swap frog, so that does make sense. So this is one of the few instances that Kaiku actually works. So I think this card's better in theory than it actually is in reality. It's great against frogs if you actually are able to get the attack off. Problem is, most of the time they have dupe block on the board, they have substitutes, and it's just so difficult to get the Kaiku to go off. Right here, it's hitting 1 frog, but he does have a swap frog, and he's able to dump another one next turn. So let's see here. Yep, so he takes the damage. He dusts a new one, that pulling a rug, so that's a good hit right there. So look at Fraser's hand here. He still has an out to the Kaiku here, potentially. Not overly strong. He needs a Monarch in his hand anyway. This is a heads-up play. He bounces the Cyber Dragon back here, hoping that he possibly summons a swap frog next. I don't think Fraser is going to... Oh, he does do it. So he resummons the Cyber Dragon. Okay. So it looks like he's going to set up a wall. That makes sense. So he is currently dupe blocked. He's got a Treeborn in the graveyard here. So things are going, obviously, DD Lub's way, right? He's got Caius on the board. He still has a Kaiku on the board here. This is very good. Okay, we have Junk Sync on. So I'm guessing that he wants to grab the Kaiku here because of the fact that he has DD Crow. Because if Kaiku stays on his opponent's side of the field, he's unable to DD Crow the value here. So that does make sense. So Red Dragon Archfiend, I didn't realize that this card is actually really good against frogs, especially the dupe block. So he can't actually banish here. Kaiku's on the board. So this was heads up play by DD Lub. He actually attacks with the Dark Arm Dragon, even though he knows he can't destroy the dupe frog, because if he does not attack with Dark Arm here, the Red Dragon Archfiend in the end phase will kill it. So that was actually pretty smart, knowing that he has to actually attack with a Dark Arm here. And then Red Dragon attacks and is going to destroy all of the frogs. So at this point, this is a dominant field. Brain control is probably what's needed to really out this board here. One Monarch is not going to be enough to do that. He has Mirror Force set here. So we see Vanity's Fiend. This card here is really good when you are able to drop it into an empty board. Not very good when you're staring down a Red Dragon Archfiend and a Dark Arm. So right now, Fraser's hand is pretty unplayable. He does draw a Soul Exchange, which would be good if it was just one of the other on the board here. I don't think he has a choice. He has to get rid of the Dark Arm. And brings out Vanity's Fiend with no backup here. So obviously, DD Lub is in a dominant position. There is the brain control. So that would have been nice, like, last turn, because that would have actually been the out to the board. You could have brain controlled the Red Dragon, and or the Dark Arm. Actually, you could have brain controlled the Dark Arm. He does have Dark in the graveyard, and he could have potentially popped the back row. He could have DD Crow'd target the value, and then he could have popped the Red Dragon and then sacked for the Vanity's Fiend, and that would have probably ended this game. For Fraser probably would have won the game if that brain control, if that Soul Exchange was essentially this brain control here. So you see how easy it is for this deck to really out a board with just a Monarch or a Soul Exchange or a brain control if they have the right cards to do it, right? Brain Control over Soul Exchange outs this whole board. So. DD Crow is played here. 10-foot decides to use Plague Spreader. I'm sorry, interchange between his name. His name on Discord is 10-foot. His dueling book name is DD Lub. So he's just pushing down damage here. Threatening Roar is an interesting card, especially in this situation here, because Red Dragon will actually kill all of the other monsters on the field for DD Lub because they can't declare an attack. So that could be potentially really, really good here if DD Lub summons another monster on his next turn. So probably the only time you actually get a plus with Threatening Roar, other than like, yeah, usually it's a 1-for-1 at best if they MST it or something. But here you get a 1-for-1 potential for more if DD Lub summons another monster. So that was interesting. Brain Control. Looks like we're doing a big damage push here. He has Mirror Force, not going to Mirror Force anything here. And then it's pretty obvious with the 2 tribute face down. Most people can read that that's a Gores. And I'm pretty sure that that's said in the chat. Yep, he knows it's a Gores. Set Spirit Reaper here. What's the graveyard? Let's check the graveyard here. It still doesn't have a value play yet, so I think this is all proper play. And he top decks Brain Control. So that's obvious game, right? Brain Control the Gores, attack with the Spirit Reaper. The only out to this is he would have to have the Battle Fader. Obviously, if he does have Battle Fader, that would be game coming back the other way, right? Because the Spirit Reaper is an attack, but he has Mirror Force, so he's pretty well protected, and Torrential, so or potential game anyway. So obviously, Frazier doesn't know that there's Mirror Force or Torrential here. Brain Control is probably top 2 or 3 cards of the format. It just swings so many games here. As you saw, this card could have potentially just won the game for Frazier if he had drawn it a turn earlier, and it obviously wins here for DD Lub. So let's get into game 3 here. Very back and forth. Again, if you watch this game live, they were doing really hard thinks and play. They were, taking their time. It took almost an hour. So both of them were playing as if it was a very much a meaningful match to both of these players. So it's good to see that. Let's see here. Let's pause at the opening hands here. So Fossil 9 are very common now in sideboards. Definitely there just to combat the Frog deck. Not an overly strong hand. This card here is one of the ones I'm kind of figuring if I want to play in Zombies or not. It's a brick opening hand. Obviously in value, it's a blowout card. Same thing with Zombies. It can be just a blowout card, but you hate to see it turn 1. Frog hand here, not the greatest. Obviously, a couple Dust Tornadoes. Really would like to see if this was a Monarch here. I think the hand would be much better. And then we have Rhoda. This probably gets Stratos, so it does. Nifty little combo here. I'm pretty sure you can special summon this and tribute for the Malicious Edge, which will potentially get you a draw. So that's a little interaction there. Royal Oppression, surprisingly enough, is actually decent against a Frog deck because they do a lot of special summoning aside from the Treeborn. Obviously, this doesn't stop Treeborn. Okay. Here. This is another Dust Tornado here. So I'm guessing at this point he's probably forced to set the Raikou or the Vayu because interesting that was a very key play that went almost unnoticed. DD Lub sets 2 in the end phase here, and Frazier has the option to actually Dust Tornado one of them, but chooses not to. That's very important because I'm guessing the thought process is that he is trying to insulate one of these cards, which is why he set 2. Because very rarely are you going to set 2 back row, especially after you just saw a Dust Tornado go off. So you have 2. There's one card here that you value over the other, and I'm guessing it's probably the Royal Oppression. And it's heads up play by IMNERD Frazier Smith here because he does not activate the Dust Tornado. He waits. So I think that he has a good idea that there's actually a Dust Tornado, a Royal Oppression down here. So that was actually, because most people just, first off, I watch so many people just slam MSTs. They slam Dust Tornado. They don't think. End phase, they flip it, boom. And a lot of the time that's fine. Just flipping MST or a Dust Tornado in the end phase to pick off a back row that they can't activate. But this is definitely, I think this is going to be important here. So Substitute is obviously activating priority, and there's the Royal Oppression, so this works out perfect. And change the Dust Tornado. So just not slamming the Dust Tornado in the end phase is very important there, because now this allows this whole dupe block to be set up. So we have the dupe block in full force here. You never like to have him in attack position, but... So this is one of the few strengths going into the Frog matchup as a value player. It has the Raikos that can actually out the dupe block pretty easily. This is still a soft lock here. Still can't actually out the board. It has to attack the dupe block first. Can't be destroyed because of Substitute. So let's check the graveyard here. He has one piece of a Armed Wing, and he's sending the other piece here with the Greffer. So let's see what he chooses to do. So he's going all out here, and this is fine because he actually has the Burial here that he drew turn 1, so he can reset the whole graveyard here and make a whole nother power play. There's potential for this to be game, actually, because he can attack the Dupe Frog, and it's in attack position. So this could be... goes into Armory Arm, which is... You don't see that very often, but... So let's see here. He's got 23, 23, so that's 22, 22 is 44... 64, so I think he's going to leave him with a less than 500 here. I don't think he actually has game. Even if you equip Armor Arm, you actually lose damage here because it only powers up one of the monsters by 1,000. So I'm not sure. Was there a way for him to actually go for game? I don't know. I'd have to rewatch the line and figure it out. I don't think there was a way he could actually game him here. So obviously he's just going to attack the dupe. Let's see what he puts him down to. I think it's like 500. Math is hard sometimes. So it actually leaves him at 300. So this Brain Control is just not going to be live anymore here. So he equips the Armory Arm, which I'm not sure why. I don't know why, because one Monarch can just out both of these now. So I guess it doesn't matter much, because if you slam a Monarch, you can just bounce this anyway and run over the Armory Arm, but that forces them to attack. So let's see here. So he does draw a Ryza. So he does have playable cards here. It's not like he's completely out of it. So let's see here. What does he target? So he targets the Greffer, which is interesting. I'm not sure. If he targets the Armed Wing, the Armory Arm goes to the graveyard, the Armed Wing goes back, and then he has a potential to run over the Greffer. So I'm not sure what was thinking here. Again, they know more than I do. And then he actually compulses the Greffer, because he can't compulse the Arm Wing back here. It doesn't do anything for him. So, yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I'm not sure the thought process. I'm sure there's an absolute reason for it. Also interesting was that he tributes the Ryza here, when he could just switch these to defense position and still keep the dupe block up. So that's interesting. Let's see here. Okay, so he unequips the Armory Arm. He's going to stack, and he goes back into Red Dragon again. So this shows you the power of Red Dragon. He won last game with it, and he's going back into it again. Because Red Dragon does not care about destroying the monster. It just wants to attack a defense position monster. So this is really a good out to the dupe block. So, unfortunately, he is going to attack, and it's going to destroy all the monsters, and Armory Arm is going to attack directly here. I don't think it actually matters at all if Frazier sends back the Armory Arm and the equipped Armed Wing. I don't think it matters. I do think that DD Love still wins regardless, but this was a match between two champs, essentially, a YCS champion and an Edison RBET champion. I tell you, watching this game live was crazy. There was, 50 people in the chat watching the stream. And again, this game took probably an hour. We get to enjoy it in a fraction of the time. And again, if you guys want to play in the BCS tournaments, they are held. We possibly moving them to Saturday so we can have 32 players, which would be bigger. Right now, we're running 16-player tournaments. So join the Discord, which is in the description. Again, I try to have high-profile players. Almost every single tournament, there's at least somebody who's topped events, maybe a couple people who've topped events in the 16-person tournament, so they're pretty competitive. Again, If you want to join the Discord, I'll have it in the link. Subscribe to Fraser Smith's IMNERD YouTube channel, which will also hopefully be in the link as long as I can find it and post it in there. And there's a 3v3 tournament this Saturday on the Format Library Discord. So join the Discord there and find teammates. So please like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to push 1,000 subscribers. We're about halfway there. And I shall see you all on the next one.